Welcome to 5 of the week. This week we're coming to you as freshly crowned SBA champions. Tell him, Nepto.
Woo!
Yes, the Charlotte Aviators have been crowned the SBA champions over a 4-2 series win over the mighty Brooklyn Bullets in the season 57 finals just then. Uh, on their way to the finals, beating the Pittsburgh Ironmen in 7 games and the Las Vegas Jokers in a very comical 6 game series. What were your first thoughts? You already told me some specifics about the situation last night, but what were your first thoughts about becoming an SBA champion?
I
Well,
mean, it's a bit weird because Bobby and I obviously have a long history together as a coaching duo, and until this season, we were whooping 0 of 3 finals won with only like one game even won across those 3 finals. So it feels good to finally have this one in the bag, especially with the core we currently have. Like just reloading in I think 2 seasons now or 3 seasons from the end of the Washburn and Freedom Core. And yeah, and to do it over arguably the greatest franchise in the SBA world is a good feeling. Even though I feel a bit bad for Shaka that he wasn't able to crown his Cinderella run on his last season as a GM for now. But that's the game.
yeah, well, them's the shakes. I got a message for Shaka right here. Should have built a better team. Ha ha.
I mean, I still
Michael Wallace the third, more like Michael Wallace the third. Alex Gardner, more like kicked out of Pittsburgh Gardner. Gist, more like who gives a care about gist. And then you have the most
all I get
laughable of them all, Jack Ryan. More like Jack crying after being defeated in 6 games. Crying, boo hoo. And
how long have you
Dion.
been preparing
Yeah.
for those? Did you spend the last 24 hours just brainstorming?
No, I have actually a little more capable brain power than many people think. But uh, should I give the one for Deontay Fairchild, or are we past the talk show radio part now?
I mean, why not? We don't want him to feel left out, you know?
Yeah, so Deontay Fairchild. More like, you can't play. Fairchild, get out of here. Moo-hoo. Go cry into your retirement home, old balls. Them's the shakes. Shake a shakes. Alright. Kicking off a new SBA offseason as SBA champions. We couldn't be more proud of the work we've done, and sorry if you feel offended by anything that I said. That just means you actually relate to what I said. Obviously, this was all in jest, but whatever. What was interesting about the playoffs this the past playoff week was that the Bullets were actually in a more similar situation than the Vipers and the Ironmen, than the Aviators, based on their regular season performance. Don't you think? Since the Houston Ravens and the Charlotte Aviators were considered two of the best teams of the regular season, but it was indeed the Brooklyn Bullets who
Best
made it, yeah, bested them and bested the Toronto Thunderbirds to make it to the finals and actually make it a, well, competitive series, but in the end, the wins were decisive. I think there were 2 double-digit wins in
Let me
game
go.
2, and no, actually it was 128 to 180. Yeah, so well, it felt like double-digit
Like
defeat
not
at
all
that.
games went down to one possession
Yeah.
in that way.
So what did you think about you called it a Cinderella run, but my talk show radio persona would have rushed it more to good fortune rather than
They just
anything.
had a lot of luck on their run.
Yeah.
To be honest, I didn't expect the Bullets to make it past the Ravens at any point. I was quite surprised by that. But at the same time, I think what we saw this playoffs in general is a lot of, I wouldn't necessarily call it upset potential, but a lot of parity going around with the cap lowering and lowering each and every season. And we had a lot of teams that could make a run for the championship in the right circumstances, as seen by the Bullets making it all the way. But yeah, what do you think? Will we see another parity-driven year next season, despite all the contenders moving the pieces around for cap space? Or
No, actually, I think it'll be more straightforward than that. Charlotte, Houston, New York, Las Vegas, they all have their work cut out for them. Even in Pittsburgh, we sort of still have our work cut out for us. But I think it'll be more straightforward, much closer to what you saw in the uh, playoff standings or regular season standings this season. But just since the playoffs this season were characterized by Ironman against the Aviators, a very tough series, Bullets making it all the way to the finals, Jokers beating both the Knights and the Rail very easily. I think it'll be much closer to this season than what we've come to know in the past, since the talent gaps won't be as wide due to the fact that you said their salary cap forcing a ton of moves in this offseason. So, no, I don't think it'll be as much a parity driven thing as it has been in the past.
I mean, as a writer, I love all the storylines that can come out of moves, but obviously now for Charlotte as well, the cap is not looking good, and it hurts to have to say goodbye to someone of this core we just reloaded with and won a championship with. And yeah, now someone has got to be the odd man out for a lot of teams, and it will be interesting how the whole thing shapes up. If someone does a Sixers in Seattle and just assembles a bunch of free agents, who knows? Will be interesting to look out for.
Yeah, but that's even if you'd done that, then it was not gonna. If it was a similar situation to what happened with Sixers in Seattle, it just means it's not gonna work. It doesn't mean much more than that. We also have a live update. The free agent moratorium is open as of right now. So, Nepto, your player Magnus Ekström is in free agency. How would you like to join the Pittsburgh Ironmen?
Tempting offer, tempting offer. But Magnus is going to head back to OKC.
All right, folks, you heard it here first. Magnus Ekström signing a blockbuster deal in his native home of Oklahoma City, which is very boring, but still gonna
Yeah,
happen.
I mean, I wouldn't want to live in Oklahoma City probably in real life. Like I've only been to the States once, and it wasn't even Oklahoma, but I've only heard a lot of stories about it.
Yeah, so you have Farmer Hicks, tornadoes, and Molehold. Very difficult time.
An unholy trinity, as you might say.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. We have had a rough stretch the last 2 seasons, but the core is still there, and we're gonna make it work somehow. But I think one of the hottest teams in free agency, beside obviously Pittsburgh trying to get their fourth and fifth man on the court, which I would love to hear some insights from you about, because I don't think you have that much cap space left.
Uh-huh.
And especially you also skipped on or you traded your draft pick from the LA Rush. But I think with the trade today for ECW, the Wolverines are a prime spot for some free agent to join them to complete the whole starting lineup and try to make a run for the playoffs.
Do you want an answer that is gonna appease to the masses and do good with my friend Jeff and my friend G9C, or do you want an answer that is much more honest and pure?
I mean, go for the honest answer. I would love to hear your thoughts.
The Vancouver Wolverines, more like yeah, not that. I don't think. Well, what I think is that they have $6 million in cap space, and that's not gonna be enough to turn the current crop of players, which is ECW, Wolf in the backcourt, then Timothy Nowitzki Thurmond, and then Joe Young, both in the front court. I don't think 6 million of free agents is gonna turn this team to someone who wins a second round playoff series.
No, probably not.
So, if anyone's looking for something more than the second round playoff defeat, don't join the Vancouver Wolverines. You do much better to join the Houston Ravens. You do much better to join the Brooklyn Bullets. You do much better to join the which other teams have cap space here? The Arizona Inferno, the Pittsburgh Ironmen, even the fucking St. Louis Battalion, for that matter. Don't entertain the idea that you're the one who's gonna make the Wolverines great, especially after the fact that they had some of the best teams of the last decade of SBA basketball and couldn't win the SBA championship. No, don't overthink it. Wolverines aren't going to be especially good, but I was happy to see that Jeff got an extremely good player for basically free. I would have also liked to get an extremely good player for free, but I did not know the price was for free instead of actual hard assets, which I'm sort of kicking myself over now. But it is what it is. What do you think about the Wolverines then? Now that you posed the question as what was it, the most intriguing free agent landing spot? I still think it would be Arizona. But if
Uh,
you say
the reason I think the Wolverines are such an interesting landing spot is because we have a lot of
we,
players in the SBA currently
oh,
that want to score. I mean, we've seen it last season with I don't know how many 30 points per game scorers, and the current trend in the SBDL points in the same direction as well. So there is a team with like two great passers. You have Wolf, you have ECW, and you have a coach that has proven to make it work repeatedly, who at some point during the last season was like, stop winning. I don't want to win right now. But still couldn't help to get some wins in there. And I think even though their front court is extremely young and will prevent them from doing any real damage in the playoffs, they are just one free agent acquisition in like the 800, 900 TPE range away from making the playoffs at least.
Yeah. Well, I suppose. I think it's sort of a continuation of what we talked about like a season ago, where some people do have a more simple-minded approach that if you're not able to win a championship, then you should just go for big numbers instead. Well, now if you are a player in free agency and in a position whom this applies to, then you still have some sort of nuance to go for the championship path instead of big numbers. So it still applies the train of thought, but not as much right now in this specific example, don't you think?
Yeah, yeah. I think we can definitely agree on this.
Well, if you are saying that the Vancouver Wolverines are an interesting spot, who would be the second most? Like, who are the runners up for that position in your opinion? Like, teams with most cap space are obviously Los Angeles Rush, who have no players, Washington Wild, who basically have no players, and then you have the Oklahoma City Rampage, who are pending your re-signing, and the Brooklyn Bullets, who are pending like 3 starting players, and the Seattle Knights, who are also pending like 3 starting players.
Yeah, I think I've heard a lot of chatter through channels throughout the last week that there are free agents going to Seattle. I don't see who it's going to be. I don't see Seattle being a contender this season once again. But yeah, I just don't see this team. Not no free agent in there is going to turn the tide and make them a contender, in my opinion.
No, me
Not
neither. Yes.
Koji returns, Peyton Wright joins, whatever. I still don't see them making a run for it. But still, they have some appeal apparently. If the Bush radio is to be believed. But beside them and the obvious tanking teams, just as Montreal and Co. and the Battalion, obviously, they won't be out there signing players. I think the Vice could have an interesting offseason, as well as the Inferno, because the Vice and Inferno both have still a core, let's say, of players left. For the Inferno, it's Shadow Shield entering his 2 prime seasons. It's Witherspoon being one of the best small forwards in the league already, and possibly shooting guards wherever she's going to play this season. And still Lucas Wagner, despite his regression. So there's still some nice spots to fill, but they don't have a lot of cap left. And the Vice have their big man duo of Marcus and Vicarian still ready to go and are one of the better big man duos in the league. And they just need to find some good pieces on the perimeter. But
Well,
don't
there
have that much space either.
there is still 2 Greek named players out there in free agency with former favorite Archeptolis Salaminos and what's his name, Grigoris Polyronidis. They could kind of run it back from last season. Not saying Polyronidis is as good as Rory McDougall. I suppose Rory McDougall is still in free agency as well, isn't he? Yes.
Yeah, he is.
So what's keeping Miami from bringing both those players back? I don't know. Maybe they have.
Grigoris was in in
No,
Miami last.
no, he wasn't, but just a Greek name.
Ah, oh, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Don't even think Polyronidis is actually a Greek name, it's just a name. Let's just see. Actually, it seems like it's a Cyprian or a Greek name, so he'll do just fine. So get in Polyronidis, McDougall, and Salaminos, and then you almost have the same team as last season. Maybe a little regressed, but it don't matter. They'll still get 41 wins, and it'll be fine. No one's getting any numbers aside from Marcus. It'll be grand. But yeah, it will be an interesting offseason in Miami, and especially interesting because I hold their end, hopefully their end and not my end, of the season 59 draft selection, which is cool. If they decide to shit it all, I can get a extra lottery pick. And if
And
they
trade it away again, just like you did this season.
yes. Well, I also have Colorado's and Washington's or Chicago's. So
Damn.
I'm not gonna pick all the three players. I just need to figure out something there. But let's get back to the first question of the five questions. This will be our question number 3. Then, who should I target in free agency then instead of Magnus Ekström, since you are promised to sign back in Oklahoma City, the Hurricane capital? That's probably not true, but the Hurricane capital of the
I think the big
whatever.
prize of this season's free agency, beside Brucker, who is going to return to Toronto, as far as I know, is obviously Haas. I don't know why he is entering free agency, what Town's plan in Houston is, or if he just wants to join the rest of the admins in Mexico City. But if you can pitch him and get him on your side, then that's one of the best players you can pretty much throw into every system going forward, and who is just entering the most cap efficient years of his career, I would say.
To the best of my knowledge, the Mexico City or the Mexico City Ocelots do not have the cap space to sign Vititas Petronitis, so it'll be difficult for them as it'll be difficult for anyone else if Haas has got his heart set on joining the Ocelots. So yeah, obviously with now Maximilian Vlatko Pezic off the board and Magnus Ekström unceremoniously off the board, that is also my main goal or main point of interest. And up next would be Avi Cohen the third, Peyton Wright, Gergis. Lavonte King is now an unrestricted free agent.
But I think he's inactive these days.
Yeah, well,
But regardless, yeah, there
last
are still
resort
some names
options.
left, but not as big as a prestigious free agent class like last
Last
season. I think
season,
it was.
yeah, no way. By the time the clock turned, I only had one person lined up. Yeah, whereas last season, I had 9 and 3 GMs for trades. So it's definitely much different to last season.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I had 2 people because you're included, but I also knew from Tomato that you were gonna resign. I just wanted to make a bit for the recording.
But what do you think of KG's current play of Kyrgyz? Like, I don't know what to make of him.
Well, it's a let's just I'm not gonna pull it up on the screen for any podcast viewers, but I'm not gonna go over the main parts. The for a year 4 player, now year 5, or is it year? What the fuck?
I think he's entering year 4 as well.
Yeah.
He's like
So for a
draft.
year 4 player, good perimeter defensive player, 90 3-point shot, 70 inside with no strength and no jumping, which is very curious. But all in all, well worth 2.5 million. But also finally officially going inactive and not updating their player. So that's
Busy
a
as well. I know that DB is planning on going inactive, but I wasn't sure if it was KG as well.
yeah. That since the other day I talked to KG, he said he was not interested in his current player and was not gonna put time or money into it right now. Would it change in the future, especially if I signed him? I don't know, but I'm not gonna.
Take the risk.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bet on it. It's not as a risk because if I was gonna sign him, then I'd know the risk already, and it'd be sort of a fourth, fifth option in my off season. But
Yeah. I think if he wouldn't have the 70 inside and 75 jump shot, then I would say he is a extremely good option if you want like a bit of utility on your perimeter from like point guard to small.
yeah, and in the Pittsburgh Ironman current predicament, you only need someone like that because if he was going to sign for the Pittsburgh Ironman starting next season, he'd be the fifth best player, which is good. His skill set seems good for a fifth best player. I actually think the 75 jump shot complements the 70 inside, even in the lack of strength and jumping, because now that the player is actually going to get more jump shot looks, he actually has a little bit of talent to make those shots instead of having 70 inside and 35 jump shot where the player forces himself into inside and jump shot positions but can't make either. So actually here, in my opinion, the 75 jump shot sort of complements it, but not really, Like if I was in this position, I'd still have spent the jump shot TP in strength instead. But generally a good player for a fourth or fifth best player on a team. What do you think about the sort of a top end of the free agents? You said it was not as glamorous as last season's, but there are still 3 players that are above 1.1 thousand TP or AP, and Kojimatsu Jr., which seems like it's not a real naming tradition. Japanese, and Junior. But and then Peyton Wright, and then Dallas Brooker. Like, do you think these players are game changers, or that they are just players who seem to fit the mold and are not gonna massively reshape any franchise that they join?
I think they're past the point in their careers where they can reshape any franchise because especially with Koji and Peyton Wright, they're in their last prime season. Depending if they want to go into regression or not, that's like at best 2 seasons of a good player, let's say it like that. And on top of that, neither of them have, at least of the both of the year 8 guys, Peyton Wright and Koichi Matsui, have the build that would make me say this is an MVP type of player that's going to change the whole team. That being said, I think any team with playoffs or contention hopes, which are not quite there yet, could use them to take the bump, especially Peyton Wright, who has a pretty nice defensive attributes like his perimeter defense and stealing and such. While I feel like Koji is getting hurt a bit by the strength cap at 80. He can take a decent amount of shots these days, but he won't be as efficient as some of his peers, and that knocks him down a bunch, especially for the cap hit of 4 million.
Yeah, especially in today's environment, 4 million is a lot of money. And I was surprised to see Matsui being let go so early and Matsui leaving so early. I was also surprised to see Wright leaving at the current time, where in his past seasons in Houston, in season 57, Houston was possibly the best team in the SBA. And in season 56, they weren't too bad either. So leaving that situation to try your luck elsewhere is not. It's brave, certainly.
I think they don't have the cap anymore to sign him. That's the problem.
No, but do you think Houston would be better off with Wright instead of Brooklyn if they wanted to win a championship as soon as possible? Like, do you think Houston does not want to re-sign Peyton Wright?
I think for this season, Wright is the better player, but for every season that comes after, obviously Brooklyn is only entering year 3 and will be around for quite some time, if not traded out of Houston. So I think as I said, if it is only about this season, I think Wright is the better player. But anything that goes past the season, Brooklyn is the one I would decide for. But I'm a bit curious about who the 5th man for the Ravens is going to be. Like this time, they can't afford the top free agents, so which one of the 3.5 million or less free agents is going to fill that hole?
Alvin Mack has history in Houston. That would be a very easy guess, but they can't use all those players since Muad'Dib is a power forward slash center and Thompson is a power forward slash center, so that makes it a lot more interesting.
Definitely.
I think it's gonna have to come by way of trade, or then it's just Alex Garner or retaining Vitaitas Petronitis.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I don't know if we can call it a slump, but Houston hasn't made the playoffs in a couple of seasons now, and it's not like they have been bad or have been rebuilding.
Finals. You said
Final, not
playoffs.
Oh,
That was
sorry.
scary, very scary. I thought.
No, they haven't been bad. They haven't been rebuilding. They still won around 60 games about every season, but they are missing that kind of edge since they, last stomped the Aviators in 5 games in like, what was it, season 53, 54?
Yes.
I mean, missing Jaws and EL is obviously going to hurt any franchise in league history, but yeah.
But what you are missing behind the scenes is the knowledge and experience that Kayfabe and Sixers have with the game and winning championships. That's a very common talking point that if if Houston are able to win without kayfabe and Sixers whispering in the ears of town, it's gonna prove very interesting due time. Like the players they've had have never been too bad, but obviously there's something missing in the past 4 seasons of playoffs.
Yeah, they have become vulnerable. We are not as afraid of the Ravens anymore. I mean, we talked about it earlier. The Ravens were still the hottest team in the league. They won 28 games before the 28 of the last 29 games before the playoffs or something like that. But yeah, they've slowed down, even if it cannot really be called slowed down.
Yeah, but I don't know if I said this on the recording or before the recording, but I think they just got very unlucky against the Brooklyn Bullets and deserved to go through. Like, I'm not saying Brooklyn didn't deserve to go through after winning so easily, but generally, I would have picked Houston to win about 99 out of 100 times in that series, and that just didn't happen, which sometimes goes that way. Brooklyn is very familiar with this as well from season 41 and is it season 49 when they lost to Las Vegas. Season 49. No, that was their rebuilding year. Well, somewhere in there, they have 2 seasons of their own where a similar thing happened. Yeah, 48 where they lost to Las Vegas very early, and then in the season where I last won a SBA championship, they lost to Toronto in the first round of the playoffs. So they're also familiar to being against the odds or being the odds and then getting beat by the odds. So
Yeah.
the sole question for this week is by Tomato or Senor Pomidor. He asked us to rate the current quote young core unquote within the league. Who do you think are the young cores in the league currently? Well, which one comes to mind? Like Boston, one.
Boston has a young core. I don't know if you can still call Atlanta
No,
core.
year 6, year 4. That's past young core. That's just a core group of players to me. Like Pablo da Silva Taylor has 1,111 AP as the time of recording. That's not a young core to me.
Yeah, I mean, it feels kind of weird. Time's been flying. Like Bass is now also entering his 4th year already, so they are not young anymore. Yeah, like Boston definitely has a good collection of young players, and now also has added Zeke to the equation. So I think they have something brewing there if they manage to keep it together and like have a unified direction they're heading into. But beside them, I mean, the Maulers, as much as Robo is paying a ransom every season for York not to leave, at least it feels like it. They have some good pieces, but I don't know if they will make it over the hump.
What about
Like
Philadelphia? They now
Philadelphia,
have Andretti Roosevelt Sharp, in addition to Creed Voorhees and Muggsy Rhodes. Muggsy was actually very, very pleasantly surprising in his rookie season.
yeah, he has a pretty good rookie season. Not rookie of the year worthy, as you know my stance on the on the awards voting. But yeah, they have a pretty good core now, but I would actually rank the Wolverines core over them. because the Wolverines have like TNT going in full force. And maybe they're a bit on even terms, but Wolverines and Prowlers definitely have a core, but as I know from experience, only 3 players don't make yourself a good team. And convincing a free agent to buy into those 3-player cores is not as easy as you sometimes think. So yeah, probably the really young cores are those, but I'm interested to see what the Nightmare are building now because they picked up a couple of players this season and I think are trying to finally rebuild through the draft instead of trying to patch together a couple of inactives and regressing free agents to play somewhere in the middle of the table.
Yeah,
So I think
well,
they're
for
great
Chi-
young core assembling there.
for Chicago, I think that was always the plan. Just the lack of volume in the draft class and just in general of draft picks was going to be their boon. Boon is good, Bane is bad. Um, since even in their position where they had the lottery odds to be, what was it, second and sixth or third and sixth, they ended up being fifth and eighth in a worse season where they only had one draft pick instead of the two. They would have looked at, yeah, we have the lottery chance to be third, and what if they end up being eighth? Then the rebuild sort of gets set back a 1 year more. So the signing of inactives and regressing players is just to fill out the roster. I think it has been since the beginning of time, and now they have 3 rookies coming in this draft of season 58 entry draft. Marko Perkovic, then um, Nicholas Gale, and Friendly Hermit. I can't remember if Friendly Hermit's player is actually also called Friendly Hermit or if it's called something else. No, it says it's called Friendly Hermit. Yes, that's
It's friendly hard.
yeah. So to me, it seems like times are changing in Chicago in terms of like business is gonna pick up, but not in the wins column for the first season. Last I heard of rumors was that Van Rong is going to sign in Chicago to pad his stats. Uh, Friend of the program, Van Rong, formerly called a second rate player, was not quite star level, who should only care for himself. I applaud the move to go to a team like the Chicago Nightmare just to care for yourself instead of trying to work for your team instead. But to my knowledge, they also do not. Well, now they do, since they have moved on from Thomas Taylor. They do have cap space to sign both the rookies in the draft and Van Rong, so we'll keep an eye on that if that actually does happen during this off season. What do you think about a team that would be um, Pakala? Then, well, actually, what the fuck am I saying? It's my native language. Pakkala. Then Perkovic, Gale, Venigandla, and Friendly Hermit, and then Van Rong in the middle.
I mean, at least they won't suck completely on defense with Van Rong, despite me not liking some aspects of the way he builds this McMahon light thing. I think he needs more posty and more rebounding to be as much as of a defensive presence. Um, but they will have it rough. They won't win a lot of games. Definitely not this season. probably also not the next, in my opinion. And yeah, maybe they can grow into it in like 3 seasons time, but I don't know. I don't know where Didi is heading with his player.
With the free agent resume of the past few seasons, it's really difficult to believe that they're going to make a big splash next offseason to improve drastically around the margins. And no, I also think Bakala is kind of a waste of a player, really. I really don't see the point of making the what's typically called a GM player template, but then putting the TP in the wrong attributes instead. Like instead of handling and passing, you go and upgrade blocking and jump shot. And instead of, well, yeah, he still has seasons ahead of him, but I generally don't like the player type that Xavier May Jones is or was, since it's not proven that any player like that can win anything. I just think it's a good meme that everyone thinks, oh, it's a valuable role player, very good clue guy. But then you find yourself losing in the playoffs, and then what the fuck's the glue for? I don't know.
I think the type of player XMJ was is viable, but he's more of an enabler for an already established star like Joe Cooper was. Like you
And
need that.
Serrano, yes.
You just want him to like not suck on defense, provide decent defense, and pass the ball to your stars. You don't want to expect anything more from this type of player. At least I don't expect anything more. Which can work, yes, but I'm not a fan per se.
If you look at the finals winners of the past 15 seasons, I don't think any team that has explicitly had just an enabler, though. Like, I guess Akili is one, but also scored 33 points in the decider. So it's difficult to say. Let's just go on the Wayback Machine to be sure. The previous season, it was Miami against Toronto, as we all know. Miami had no enablers. There's no way you can go call the playoffs MVP an enabler. I'm sorry to say. And then the year before that, the New York Rail had a lineup of Landstriker, Truffant, Biggins, Villoria, and Salaminos.
I mean, it's still, I kind of like the story Outland Striker carved out for himself, even though not many paid attention to him. From like being, I called him in a network piece once the worst defensive player in the league.
And he was.
Because he had not a single TP invested into his defense for like his first 3 or 4 seasons, and it was one of the reasons that Toronto fell short of the playoffs despite having the TPE talent to make it work.
Yes.
But then he joined the Rail and bulked up a bit on that side and played a vital part in their championship run. I don't know if it was just the one or
Both.
and yeah.
Oh, well, not both. They lost the other one.
Oh yeah, right.
Rail, yes.
Number one was they lost one finals and then before that they won against the Ravens with the old core around Zoo and Congo and I don't know who else.
In the first finals they made in this current era, they still had the same team. It was just Tobin Tiker at center instead of Landstriker and Truffen. That's when they lost to Boxman. And then the second time they lost to Craven Walker and Marcus. They also, or if you're talking about like before,
Yeah, I
before
was talking about the
season 48,
49
49.
with like Congo and Zoo and I can't quite remember.
Ben
I think
Schneider and Gerald Eddy.
yeah, exactly. Like the team that interrupted the Ravens' dominance.
Ravens 9 Pete, yeah.
Leroy Jenkins, all right.
Yes.
I
He was playing power forward, I think. But
mean,
Leroy was a good player, though.
yes, AO hated Leroy with a passion.
But he was a good player.
But he was a good player.
AO doesn't know
That's
shit.
the thing with defensive players like Leroy. Yes, they don't make a lot of fun, especially early on when you don't have the scoring on the other side as well, but he was a pretty damn good player.
Well, I won the MVP on a defensive player, so I'll just always use that excuse against anyone who says defensive players aren't like worth it or fun.
I mean, I started out with Maeda as the plan of being a defense first guard, and in the end, I still
What's the use?
became decent offensively and suddenly won an award. So I think it's the better route to go defense first and then for the offense.
It
In terms
also
of
very much depends on the
yes,
position you play, because like you said earlier, like Landstreicher was the worst defensive player in the league. It's even more alarming if you're gonna play power forward slash center than if you would just play only point guard. Because almost every basketball defensive scheme, it's expected that the first line of like point of attack defense is going to be broken, and it's the secondary lines of defense that are gonna help out. And if you're the like in the scheme of the defense, if you're playing zone, for example, or if you're just generally being the second guy to help at the rim and you play no defense, that's not going to be any useful. But if you're just a point guard and you have shit defense, then who
you
would?
can't survive against certain teams.
Yeah, what does it matter if the opposition point guard scores 28 points and has 11 assists? Like you can see that happening against the best defensive guards as well.
Yes, or especially when you had like Fuego and Washburn running around, not being the best defender on those two didn't actively hurt your team.
Yeah, and them not being the best defender either, or actually them being the best defenders at the position, also had less value than Coco Creek being the best defender at his position, or Lewis Crawford being the best defender in his position, or Monroe McMahon being the best defender in his position. Because it's just being a front court player lends you to more defensive opportunity, assumedly, with what we know or what we use as heuristic, than being a point guard only. It's just simple basketball theory. Or at least that's what I think. If you're the best defensive point guard in basketball, it's less valuable than being the best defensive center in basketball.
Yeah, especially in FBB.
Yeah,
I
well,
think in the NBA or like in the EuroLeague, there's a different topic to it. Of course, you have like rim protectors that a Rudy Gobert type who can influence the whole game, but having a disruptive defender outside, like I'm not talking Patrick Beverley, who's just obnoxious to opposing ball handlers, but guys that can really disrupt the flow of the playmaking. I think that's quite valuable as well, and obviously depends on the team you're matching up against. But yeah, in our SBA world, a good big defender is always more valuable, and that's why we often see the defensive player of the year going towards a big man.
Yeah. And like, I understand your example, but in real life basketball, it's almost impossible for 48 minutes and 110 possessions for a perimeter defender to like consistently harass and effectively disrupt the ball handlers. Like, it's just not possible. It's always prone to breaking down at some point, even if it's only 1/3 of the time. Then you still need someone to clean up, and that's the cleanup players who also get the most shine in the terms of statistics. Then, but
Yeah,
yeah, I understand your point. Where if you look at real life players like T.J. McConnell or Facundo Campaccio and even Chris Paul at times, you think, or Matisse Thybulle is a perfect example of this, and Ben Simmons at times, where you just think, oh, they're really like making it difficult on the other team. But then there's 3 possessions in a row where it looks like normal basketball and they're not making it difficult for the other team. And then again it happens, and then you start to make notice of it, but you don't realize it doesn't happen each time. Even
yeah,
with
I
Gary
think
Payton in the past, it didn't happen every time. It just happened with more often than with John Stockton or Mark Price or whoever, other
yeah, I
guys.
think what I completely agree with you, because obviously hounding someone full court to really disrupt the playmaking will drain you way more than to simplify parking your ass in the paint and just cleaning up the mistakes of your guards.
Yeah, so that's basically a long explanation on why Willard's Landstriker once was the worst defensive player in the league and now is a well-esteemed former, not SBA champion, maybe. I'm forgetting again. Not SBA champion is what we'll call it. Yeah, since he didn't play, we just went over it. Kongo, Jenkins, Zozo, Eddie, and Schneider. Yeah, he lost in the finals. Get over it. Yeah, all right. So I think that's all for this week. Unless there's been new questions just in the last minutes. If
Let me check. I just saw that Brucker indeed got re-signed by Toronto.
oh yeah, we can talk about the quick first moves of free agency, which I'm supposed to be doing, but instead I'm talking to the wall and the wall mounted microphone. Toronto Thunderbirds have signed Alex Taylor. Las Vegas
Yeah.
Jokers have signed Jamal Jr. Yeah, so
Oh yeah. I mean
it's
the
players.
Jamal Jr. signing was on the horizon as soon as ECW got traded.
Yes. Do you think it's surprising that they value Jamal Jr. over ECW, or is it just a result of the extremely low salary cap compared to what their previous season's players were making?
I think it's a result mainly of the cap, because Jamal Jr. is making considerably less than ECW.
Yeah.
Consider they got like 300 TPE between them. But also Jamal Jr. is a pretty decent big man. He's been in Las Vegas for ages.
All through
And
his career. Well, no, he was in Pittsburgh first, I think.
yeah, something like that. I think he got traded from Pittsburgh maybe on draft night or
No,
later
he
on.
played 2 seasons, like 51 and 52 in Pittsburgh, then to Las Vegas. But yeah, he only bloomed in Las Vegas after he got given all the shots ever.
Yeah, so I think, to go back to the topic we had before, I
Mm-hmm.
think a good big man outshines a good wing, like ECW is most of the times. And big mans in an affordable cap situation while still being one of the best at their position are quite rare. So I'm not that surprised that they opted for Junior instead.
Yeah. And the other moves were just, well, as was Jamal Jr., it was just teams re signing their players from last season, like the Toronto Thunderbirds, like you said, signed Dallas Brucker and also Alex Taylor, who were both on the team last season. That's just to refresh the viewer's memory in case this is pertinent. They have 0 cap space currently, and they have a starting lineup of Adewale Adekoya, Virgin Tall, Dallas Brucker, Alex Taylor, and Camilo Portis, a second-year player out of, can't remember where he played in the
White out.
SPDL. Yeah,
I think it was
Saskatchewan.
yeah.
Um,
But
Very difficult to see how Toronto would be a championship contender next season with the front court of Taylor and Portis. But what do you think?
I think they could. I think they make the playoffs at least, but they won't make it far in the playoffs because Portis against a 1K big man is not going to go well.
Unless it's Talibakili, then it's gonna go alright.
I don't know. Even then, you're just getting killed down there. And then if Taylor gets sent to the bench or any other guy, you basically have two filler level players out there. That's not going to work in the
Oh well,
playoffs.
yeah. Portis has 39 post defense and 72 fouling. I think even with the 88 strength and 75 inside, combination of Ilmarsson or Robinson and Akili or Bishop or whoever the fuck it is, it's gonna bring a lot of pain his way. So yeah, I don't think too highly of the Toronto team currently on the table. No offense to any of the players specifically, but just a player in the 300 TP range on a so-called championship contender, it's always made them a non-contender in the end. So I don't see it changing here, but it can. Like a lot of teams are scrambling for a good move or improving on the margins and selling their best players because of the cap environment. So yeah, anything can happen next season, I think.
Yeah, it's a weird situation currently where people try to get rid of the best players in the league because they are nearing regression and are a luxury to have in your cap space in the current situation. I think we could see a couple of basically what Toronto is, a 4-player team with one filler even starting or like a low level rookie
Yeah.
starting. So
What do you think about the Pittsburgh Ironman if we were able to send out Frost, Nix, then a small forward in the 700, 800 TP range, say like what we talked about earlier, Cohen, Bernard, KG, and then just Cannon and Harris again. Where do you think that team lands on the general scale of things?
so who's the fourth star
I don't know
after
about a
Ross Terry
star.
and Ken?
Let's just say Frost, Knicks, like Denver Knicks is gonna
Ah,
return.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay. I mean, a team, if you get like Knicks and a 700, 800 TP small forward, then the team's going to become completely fine. I think Cannon and Harris are a pretty good big man duo. They are both pretty from like the old Pittsburgh system, let me call it like that, have some pretty good defense, especially post and Purdy, and are pretty efficient offensive players. Still don't know quite what to make out of Frost. I know what Cassie's plan was when he first started up in the SPDL. But right now, the Athletics are slowly coming into play, a bit too late for my liking. But maybe next season is the big breakout season, and she smacks around a bunch of other point guards. Now that the point guard position is looking to be freak point guards only for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And yeah, it could make the big jump. I think they're a good team to say like semis, championship contention. I don't know quite yet. I would have to see what the rest of the field has to offer, especially how the Vipers and Ravens, for example, reshape their team under the current cap. But yeah, I can see them definitely making the semis.
Very reassuring. At least in the playoffs, Frost had against Miami. She beat them down quite good, and in the one game against Charlotte, he had 36 points with 14 of 19 shooting. So I guess it's, like you said, sort of coming around. Just need a little bit more consistency, which should come with more TPE. Alright, for everyone listening, that'll be all for this week's 5 of the week. I'm sorry if we dragged on for too long talking about Magnus Ekström and
He can't play basketball. Fairchild.
and all his friends down in Brooklyn. We'll sign off as the reigning SBA champions, and we'll keep on signing off as the reigning well, until Danger Golding returns, since he is deserved no part of the fun. Can't even remember what shit part of town he plays for.
I don't think he even plays for anyone currently.
Is the player still active? Yeah, it is. Yeah, alright. Before we go on, I'm just gonna cut the recording. See you next